Well, hello, friends, and welcome. I'm Cassidy Carson, and this is The Life of a Writer. Today is Saturday, February 14th, 2026. As you can see, I am sitting in front of my Valentine's tree. This is the tree that I had in our primary bedroom here for Christmas. And we didn't quite want to give up the pretty lights at night, so I swapped out the Christmas decorations for these red heart-shaped doilies with a few felt hearts thrown on there for good measure. I left the red Christmas ornaments, so I think the effect turned out quite nicely. But it is about time for the tree to go back into storage for the rest of the year because I think I can only take so much. And we're about to swap Valentine's Day for St. Patrick's Day because we're a little less than a month from that now. And we're going to be heading into spring. So it's time to start swapping up the decor again. Now it is evening. I spent a lot of my day hanging out with my kids and grandkids, and JT was off writing for a lot of the day. So we didn't spend much of our Valentine's Day together, which is fine because we spend so much time together on a regular basis that we can spread it out a little over time. He does get me roses of all colors at all times, so I'm never short of flowers. I currently have some white roses and some red roses. I gave him a Valentine card and really nothing else because I never know what to get him. He always gets everything for himself. And we're at an age where we really don't want a lot more to clutter up the house. So I came home to find that he had gone to a mini mart or something and bought me every red themed chocolate type of thing that he could find, which was very sweet. So I got some Pocky and I got some Zingers and I got a Kit Kat and also Dinty Moore stew because it's in a red package. We are goofy when we celebrate St. Patrick's Day. I also picked up a special dinner for us from the Wendy's where we met because we live in the same town where we worked when we first met, and the restaurant that we both worked in is still in the same place. It's still open. It's funny going through the drive-thru because I worked it so many times. So I was thinking as I was waiting for my order, sitting by the drive-thru window, that 44 years ago, on St. Patrick's Day, I was probably in that window. That was not something people wanted to do in the winter. If I remember correctly, that was probably a cold winter too, because things seem to have warmed up a bit over the years. We have had pretty much spring weather for weeks now, and it's possible we may get some snow, but I remember back in the day working that window when it was really cold outside. Now, the other day, Thursday, I posted a Substack about the joy of rediscovery, romance in retirement. And I was thinking about Valentine's Day, that JT and I have shared over the years. And I realized I can't really remember the details of a lot of them. And I believe in that Substack, I said I could not remember our first Valentine's Day as a married couple. Now, I was wrong. I actually do remember. My memory was jogged, let's say, because we have a photograph from our first Valentine's Day as a married couple. Now, just as backstory, JT and I met the summer of 1981 and started going out September, October. He left for military basic training in October, came home for Christmas, and we spent pretty much his entire leave together. And he proposed to me on New Year's Day. I made him wait a few days before I said yes. I think it was 3 days total. So our first Valentine's Day as a couple, we were actually 1,500 miles apart because by that point he had been stationed in Nebraska and I was still here in Carson City. I'd actually started going to college. My grandparents wanted me to be a corporate lawyer, Now, I didn't think that was going to be the greatest idea for me, but I was going along with it because they said they would help cover my school. So I started taking some basic classes at the community college, and I was working at Wendy's while JT was doing his thing in Nebraska. And of course, we were planning our wedding at that point. So we sent each other Valentine's cards, and our relationship at that point, back now this is 45 years ago, 44 years ago. Um, this is pre-cell phone, pre-email, pre-internet. So we would send regular letters and cards by snail mail. I still have envelopes with the Air Force stationery that he sent me. I think I kept all the letters he sent me in those days. And we also had a phone call once a week because at that point I was living with my grandparents, and landline phones, they had two phones in the house. One was in their bedroom, the primary bedroom of their house. The other one was in the dining room. So when JT proposed to me, I was sitting on the phone in their kitchen slash, I guess it was more of a breakfast nook. It was New Year's Day, and my whole family was in the house, so it was very noisy and everything. So when he proposed to me, it wasn't like, the two of us face to face and he was on bended knee, which was fine. But, we got married, and then the following year, we're getting ready to celebrate our first Valentine's Day in person as a couple, married couple. We're still newlyweds. At that point, February 1983, let me get this right, we were expecting our first kid. Now, JT and I got married young. I was 18. I actually turned 19 3 weeks after we got married. So I was 19, pregnant with our first child. We could not have celebrated, like with a fancy dinner out and wine and, things like that, because first of all, we were underage because he's a little over a year, not quite 2 years older than I am. So we're kids playing house and, pregnant, and there's a lot going on. So that's why when I was writing the Substack, I didn't initially remember that first Valentine's Day as a couple in person. But I came across a picture which reminded me, because, like I said, we weren't old enough to go out and celebrate. So what we did is we'd actually come back to Carson City to visit our families. I'm not sure how it ended up being in February, and I don't know if it was specifically Valentine's Day when this happened. But since we couldn't really go anywhere for a fancy dinner, we ended up going to the high school. There was a high school dance for Valentine's Day, and both of us had attended the high school. JT went there for the full 4 years. I was there for a month before I had to move to a different high school. But so we were both former students of the high school. It wasn't like we just crashed this high school dance. But if I can find the picture, I will add it to this video because it is rather funny. Since JT had proposed to me over the phone, what they did when they set up this Valentine's dance is that they had the red and pink streamers, and they had an archway with hearts on it. And they were taking prom-style photos of the couples at this dance. And we're there, we're still teenage. Well, I'm still a teenager. He's not. I'm pregnant, wearing maternity clothes. And basically, we're in front of the arch. I'm standing. He's kneeling at my feet, pretending to be proposing to me because he hadn't done it in person. So that was our first Valentine's Day as a married couple. We actually went to a high school dance. I was pregnant. He got down on one knee in front of the arch, and we had our prom photo taken, but it looked more like a proposal photo. So actually, thinking back on it, it's very cute. And I actually gave birth to our oldest, I think it was 10 days after I turned 20. So we were young marrieds, we were young parents, we had no clue what we were doing, and everything was new and exciting then, as it is when you're young. We weren't really thinking about the ramifications of our actions because it was great to have our kid. She was an awesome baby. She was very quiet. We eventually ended up having 3 kids and learned that all babies aren't always that quiet. But we love our kids. Our kids are great. And, we had the normal drama with them growing up. But that first Valentine's Day as a married couple was quite the interesting experience because we went to a high school dance. I mean, how many married couples can say that? And really, over the years, I don't recall ever doing a lot of special things for Valentine's Day because, as I said, that first one as a married couple we were expecting. So by our second Valentine's Day as a married couple, we had a baby. And our kids were born in pretty quick succession. There was 2 years between the 2.5 years between the first two, and then 2 years between the second and third. So we didn't have the money to hire babysitters to go out, and we would get each other cards and flowers and candy and things like that. And, the usual little Valentine's things that you could do for each other, but we didn't spend a lot of time going out to fancy restaurants or anything like that. In, I think it was 1997, we did go to an event. I think it may have been sponsored by our local college, which is what I was attending back in the first February when we were engaged, but we were apart. And the event was Leo Buscaglia. If anybody remembers the author, he wrote some interesting books about love and life and relationships. And JT and I, our kids were older by that point. So by 97, we had our first in 83. So she was 14 at that point, and well, close to 14. She would have been 13. But so our kids were older, and we did have some friends who didn't mind having them over for an evening because they also had kids. So they would just go hang out. And as the kids got older, we could get out as a couple more often. And I think in 1997, our Valentine's event was the two of us going to this. And actually, I believe JT may have been working at the college at that time, because one of his jobs over the years was working for admissions and records at our local college. And I think that was how we ended up going to this event. So there are 1 or 2 Valentine's Days that really stick out in my memory, but for the most part, they've always been just kind of another day, because we do so many little things for each other in the course of our day-to-day lives that we don't need to save it up for one special day. And that, I think, is an important thing to remember about Valentine's Day. Sometimes we put too much pressure on ourselves. There is that idea that you need to have a partner of some kind. You need to be in a loving relationship. I mean, it starts in school. Who is going to get Valentine cards from whom? And, I don't know if they still do it. When I was a kid, it was just you gave cards to kind of whoever you wanted to. And as time passed, they realized that some kids never got a Valentine. So they made it more, you would bring Valentines for every classmate to make sure that everybody got something. And I think that's kind of how it works now, but I'm not sure. I actually didn't ask my grandson, who's in 5th grade right now, if he did anything for Valentine's Day. I doubt it. I didn't see any Valentine's cards in his house, so maybe they aren't doing it much at all anymore. I don't know. If you have little kids, I would be interested to know, are they still celebrating Valentine's Day in school, and do they still require that you bring a Valentine for everybody in your class? Because I do think that's more fair. I remember when I was in school, it was sad because you would make your little box. We'd take a shoebox and cut a hole in it, and people would just then, pop the Valentines through the hole. And, I would get some from my friends, but I wouldn't get one from like everybody. And I do remember I had a crush on one boy in elementary school for multiple years. He was adorable. I remember his name, but I'm not going to mention it. And I don't know that I may have gotten a Valentine from him, but I don't remember. So I didn't have those childhood crush kind of things. And I do think it's something that they kind of set us up for failure from a young age, because there's such an expectation that you need to do special things for each other on this special day. But it really should be more like JT and I, where you do special things for each other all the time. And it's, don't wait for Valentine's Day. Don't wait for a birthday. Don't wait for Christmas. Just enjoy the days. If you want to go out for a special dinner, do it whenever. And if you aren't in a committed relationship and you don't feel like you have someone special to share a day like Valentine's Day with, treat yourself. Galentine's Day is a great idea. I love that idea. I know a lot of people have wonderful Galentine's parties, and sometimes I'm a little envious because it would be kind of fun to hang out with a bunch of female friends and just, sit around and chat and eat chocolate and watch movies. And, that sounds like an awesome way to spend the day. But I have a lot of acquaintances and friends-ish, not the kind of friends that I spend time just hanging out with every evening. I don't see them as often as I should. I really need to go visit them, but that's not really something that I personally do, but I think it's a great idea, and I think more people should do it. And it doesn't necessarily just have to be female friends. There's nothing wrong with a group of men hanging out. You can watch a game, you can play some poker, whatever. Just it doesn't have to be the traditional male-female, the dinner at the top of the Empire State Building, whatever. Just do something special for someone, because there are a lot of different forms of love. There's romantic love, there's family love, there's self-love, which is probably one of the more important ones, because if we don't love ourselves, it makes it hard for anyone to love us. But that's also tricky, because you don't want to go self-love to the point of having too much ego, and that's a whole different discussion. But I thought I'd share a little bit about some of the funny Valentines that I've had. Definitely that first one as a married couple, going to the high school dance, having that picture taken. I really hope I can find the picture to pop in here, because it's pretty funny. If not, I'll post it again at some point somewhere else. But I think you get the idea. Everybody knows what those high school dances looked like. And as someone who didn't really go to a lot of high school dances, that was actually exciting for me, because I went to my senior prom, but I was the only senior there. And I actually, now that I think about it, that was the only high school dance I went to, was the senior prom, until JT took me to the high school dance for Valentine's Day after we were married. We've had an interesting relationship, but I hope you've had a good day, whether you celebrate Valentine's Day or not. I hope that you have had some time with people that you love, people that you enjoy spending time with, or that you've curled up with a good book and a box of chocolates and something, I don't know, maybe a movie. Just do something to treat yourself and be with people you care about. So I thank you for joining me on this rambling road through memorable Valentine's Days. Oh, this is not going to be one of those videos that I'm very proud of in the future, because I'm pretty tired. But I'm keeping up with my daily posts, so even though it's not the best video, at least I did something. And now I need to go get it ready and post it before I can relax for the evening, recuperate from hanging out with my grandkids. Again, I hope you have a wonderful day and a wonderful week. Take care of yourselves. I'll be back again tomorrow. Until then, I'm Cassidy Carson, and this is The Life of a Writer. Take care.